When we think of Bruce Lee, it's easy to picture the iconic cinematic fighter with lightning-fast moves, displaying a confidence that seems nearly supernatural. Yet for all his on-screen brilliance, many have questioned how he would fare in a real fight. Did Bruce Lee's real fights ever test his skills as profoundly as his movies suggested? The answer lies in a handful of encounters that shaped him, not only as a fighter, but as a philosopher and innovator in martial arts. Below, we dive into 5 pivotal real fights that Bruce faced, challenges that would alter his trajectory in martial arts and inspire his creation of Jeet Kune Do, or the way of the intercepting fist. These were battles fought not on grand stages but in private, each encounter revealing an element of Bruce Lee's character and his relentless drive for improvement. Not all fights happen in the ring. Some of Bruce Lee's most important battles happen in back alleys and on hidden rooftops. Let's explore these hidden chapters in the life of Bruce Lee as we take a look at the 5 real fights that define Bruce Lee. And later, we'll even reveal a secret fight that Bruce Lee never talked about publicly. Stay tuned to find out who it was against and why it was kept hidden. What's up, y'all? My name is Prince, and this is Golden Bell Training, where we try to separate the facts from the fiction, especially when it comes to Bruce Lee. And every day I practice martial arts, you see. Well, beyond the lightning-fast kicks in iconic movies, a lot of people have wondered how Bruce Lee would fare in real combat. And believe it or not, there are a lot of people who think Bruce Lee never faced a real challenge outside of his full-contact sparring demonstration at the 1967 Long Beach International Karate Tournament. And that's why we're going to silence the naysayers and explore 5 pivotal fights that reveal some of the challenges Bruce Lee faced and the lessons that he learned that led to the creation of Jeet Kune Do. What's this thing you do in Cantonese? Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. Bruce Lee, the man many consider to be the king of Kung Fu, is a man who transcended the realm of martial arts. As an actor, philosopher, and martial artist, Bruce Lee left his mark on the world, and he transformed how Asians were perceived in Hollywood and beyond. His personal expression of the martial arts, Jeet Kune Do, emphasized adaptability and efficiency, and it continues to influence fighters and martial arts enthusiasts around the world today. Of course, when a figure who has forever etched his name into pop culture, it's only natural that myths and legends swirl around Bruce Lee, especially regarding his fighting abilities. You don't have to look too far on YouTube to see all kinds of videos detailing feats, such as his 2-finger push-ups and his 1-inch punch to try and make Bruce Lee into some kind of superhero and blur the lines between the man and the myths. Unfortunately, these tales often overshadow the reality of Bruce Lee's accomplishments, his philosophy, and his martial arts ability. Today, it's at the point where, as a person genuinely interested in the real Bruce Lee, I feel like I spend more time and effort playing whack-a-mole, debunking Bruce Lee myths than telling people about the real Bruce Lee. So instead of debunking another fake story by Beardy or an over-embellished tale from the Bruce Lee Real Fight channel, I want to go deeper and share with you guys some of the real fights that made a significant impact on Bruce Lee's development of Jeet Kune Do. Each fight that I'm going to share has enough details to it that it could technically be a video of its own, and some of them actually will be in the future. But for this video, I want to focus on how they contributed to the evolution of Jeet Kune Do. These weren't just physical conflicts either, but they served as pivotal moments of personal growth, which led Bruce Lee to redefine his approach to martial arts for himself and for those following him. So we're going to take a look at 5 critical bouts that stand out to me in Bruce Lee's journey. These include his boxing match against Gary Elms, where he came away unsatisfied despite earning a victory. One of his few rooftop fights, which tested his resolve, his swift victory over a karate expert that demonstrated how quickly he could dispatch an opponent. Of course, his most famous fight, the duel with Wong Jackman, and then the secret Bruce Lee fight that pretty much no one talked about, which also revealed his compassion and his maturity. Each of these fights provides a unique insight into the evolution of Bruce Lee's martial arts, philosophy, and technique. Well, our journey begins not in a far-off jungle somewhere in Southeast Asia, but in a high school gymnasium at King George V, where an inter-school boxing tournament was held between 3 Catholic high schools in Hong Kong in March of 1958. Here, Bruce Lee faced off against Gary Elms, a British student at King George V and the 3-time returning champion in his weight class. In the finals, Unlike the fists of fury and lethal sidekicks in his cinematic battles, Bruce Lee was constrained by the strict rules of boxing and the 8-ounce gloves, which softened his punches considerably. Of course, we know that Bruce Lee won the fight and became the new champion of his weight class that year. But Bruce was deeply dissatisfied with his performance. Unlike some of the stories about this fight, Bruce did not win by knockout. He won by unanimous decision. He completely swarmed Gary Elms and had him completely confused. Bruce trained for a very short time for this fight with Wong Shun Lung, and he was essentially doing Wing Chun with boxing gloves when it came time to fight. Again, like I said, Bruce Lee, although victorious, was deeply troubled by the outcome. After the match, he kept talking about his inability to knock out his opponent, and this match would serve as a starting point for Bruce Lee to begin exploring methods to increase his punching power. Bruce Lee's fight against Gary Elms was just the beginning. What he learned from this fight would challenge his very understanding of martial arts power. But how did he apply these lessons? We'll see that unfold in his subsequent fights. Well, as it turns out, it wouldn't be that long before Bruce Lee's next challenge presented itself. Within weeks of the boxing match with Gary Elms, Bruce Lee participated in at least 2 Beimo challenges, according to Wong Shun Lung. Now, one of the myths that has run rampant about Bruce Lee is that he participated in hundreds of these Beimo matches. Have you heard someone saying that Bruce Lee had hundreds of rooftop fights? Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but it's not true. These rooftop fights were referred to as Beimo. They were literally crossing hands challenges. There were rules. There were referees for fights. The reason they had to go up on the rooftops or inside a hotel room is because competitions between kung fu schools was illegal, as the British considered it all linked to triad activity back then. Wong Shun Lung said that Bruce Lee only had 2 Beimo matches, and he witnessed the one that we're going to talk about shortly. Bruce Lee's friend Hawkins Chung also said that Bruce Lee only had a few Beimo matches. He couldn't compete too much because we couldn't mess up his face for the movies. Remember, through all the stuff happening during Bruce's teenage years, he was making movies right up until the time that he left Hong Kong to return to the United States. Well, anyway, Bruce Lee had at least 2 Beimo matches. For him, these were competitions. So when people say that Bruce Lee never competed, it's not true. He did compete. He did Beimo, which involved a whole lot more contact than karate point sparring matches at that time. Now, according to Wong Shun Lung, Bruce's first Beimo match was against someone who probably had no business competing, and Bruce beat him easily. But his second match, that was a real challenge. Bruce Lee challenged an assistant instructor from a 12-foot school known as Chung. At the end of the round, Bruce was worried about what his father would do when he saw that he had a black eye and a bloody nose, and he thought about quitting the fight. Wong Shun Lung basically told him to get back out there, because Chung was tired, and basically Bruce needed to let those hands loose. And that's exactly what Bruce did. In the second round, Bruce quickly closed the distance on Chung and hit him in the face with a series of chain punches. Chung lost a tooth, and then he fainted. Bruce Lee was declared the winner by knockout. Later, Bruce Lee wrote in the pages of his diary against Chinese boxer, student Lung Chi-chun, for a year's training result. 1, that guy fainted. 1 tooth got knocked out, but I got a black eye. Bruce's victory was a real test of his resolve, but his next fight would test his adaptability against a completely different style of martial arts. How did Bruce Lee adjust his approach? Keep watching as we dive into the rapid showdown with Yoichi Nakachi. All right, let me try some of your kung fu. So which one is first? No, not today. Meet me at Duquesne College Stadium tomorrow. Well, in the span of about 2.5 years after Bruce's Beimo victory over Chung, Bruce managed to gather a small following of friends in Seattle who would be his first students and open his first storefront kung fu school. With Bruce's charisma and his skills, if he spoke to 3 people about kung fu, he would turn 2 of them into absolute believers. But that last person would likely walk away deeply offended by Bruce Lee's brashness and his confidence. Well, this was the case with Yoichi Nakachi, a student at the University of Washington, who was observing one of Bruce Lee's demonstrations. Now look, y'all, this dude, Yoichi Nakachi, he wasn't just some regular cat off the street. He was a 2nd-degree black belt in the style of karate that blended Taekwondo and Okinawan karate. Nakachi ran a dojo in the university district where he was teaching both karate and judo, in which he was also a black belt. Bruce Lee's first student, Jesse Glover, was a brown belt in judo when he first started training with Bruce in 1959. Jesse said that Nakachi was no slouch. He knew about him through the judo world, and he said that Nakachi used to get into fights around town and go against guys with knives. So look, this is a guy in the audience watching Bruce Lee give a presentation on Kung Fu. And Bruce, during his presentation, said something about how soft styles are stronger than hard styles. And Nakachi interpreted it as Bruce saying that Chinese Kung Fu was better than Japanese karate. And that started their conflict. I hear you said that karate is far from as good as Kung Fu. It is. Now, if you want the full details on this story, I'm probably going to have to make a video just about that story. But basically, everything culminated in them agreeing to fight at the downtown YMCA after school. This is a place where Bruce Lee had the challenge match with a karate man. Nakachi had 2 Japanese friends, presumably his students, with him as witnesses. Bruce brought Ed Hart, Jesse Glover, and Howard Hall. Jesse was going to be the referee, and Ed was going to be the timekeeper. They agreed that I would be the timekeeper. So I got my watch and I held it there, and I was supposed to say when to start. But when the fight started, Nakachi opened up with a front kick at Bruce's groin, which Bruce deflected with his forearm. Bruce immediately stepped in, and he opened with a flurry of chain punches, all aimed at Nakachi's head. The way that Nakachi's head bounced off of Bruce Lee's fist, it probably looked like some basketball speed dribbling drill. Bruce backed Nakachi across the racquetball court where the fight took place, and Nakachi. He really couldn't do anything to stop Bruce's attack. He finally attempted to grab Bruce's arms, and Bruce hit him with a double strike that sent Nakachi flying back into the wall. He bounced off the wall, and when he landed, his knee touched the floor, and Bruce kicked him in the face. Bruce kicked him like this, just a straight kick, like you'd kick a football, kicked him in the face, and the guy flipped over in his back, and somebody screamed. At the moment Bruce kicked him, somebody screamed no. The entire exchange lasted about 11 seconds. When Nakachi finally came to, he asked how long it took for Bruce to defeat him, and Ed Hart doubled the time and said 22 seconds because he felt bad for him. Now, in addition to Bruce being tested by a man with black belts in both karate and judo, this was one of the first time that Bruce's friends and students saw him face another martial arts instructor in a real fight. It really helped make believers out of them when they saw how easily Bruce was able to dispatch Nakachi. You've been charged with violating the martial arts code. We had several complaints from Wu Zolin and Wong Jackman and many others. Well, as Bruce continued to evolve, about 5 years later he would face Wong Jackman, a fight that would not only test his physical limits, but also his philosophical beliefs about Kung Fu. The outcome of this battle had a profound effect on Bruce's journey. Well, Bruce Lee's duel with Wong Jackman is probably the most famous Kung Fu showdown in the history of Kung Fu fights. This fight deserves its own video, because most of what people have heard isn't really true. Now, I'd love to go into the details, but the Wong Jackman fight and everything that led up to it. Look, y'all, it could legit be 3 separate videos, so I'm going to just stick to the fight. And even that can get really long, because the thing is that, well, I've heard 3 other versions of this story, one from Greg Lee, the son of James Lee, one version from David Chin, the guy who delivered the challenge letter and drove Wong Jackman to the fight, and another version written by one of Wong Jackman's students. So to keep things simple, I want you to remember why I emphasize the fight with Nakachi and how it went down. He came straight at Bruce, and well, Wong Jackman, he knew Bruce did Wing Chun and that he would attack his center line. So what did he do? He tried to keep Bruce off of his center line with his footwork. Why don't you stand and fight? Because that is what you want me to do. Now look, y'all, whether or not Wong Jackman actually turned and tried to run like Linda says in her version, the Chinese martial artist took off and started running around the room. That's not really a big issue because, see, when Bruce Lee spoke with people after the fight, he made it sound like he was chasing after Wong Jackman doing chain punches at the back of his head. But think about what Leo Fong said to Bruce when he spoke with him on the phone right after the fight. He said that Bruce needed to add some hooks and some uppercuts into what he was doing. Now, I'm just saying, how would throwing hooks and uppercuts help him with guy you're chasing? Because he turned and ran from you in the middle of the fight. Like I said, I think Wong's footwork was superior to what Bruce was doing at the time. He refused to engage with Bruce basically the same way anyone else had up to that point, and Bruce was unable to close the gap and take care of business. Now, in every account that I've read, except for the one written by Wong's student, it's pretty clear that Bruce had Wong Jackman in a vulnerable position when Wong's people broke up the fight, as they were instructed to do, according to David Chen. Now, the big takeaway from this fight is that, similar to the boxing match with Gary Elms, this was a fight that Bruce Lee won, but he wasn't happy with his performance, and it would eventually lead him to changing his approach to training and fighting. Now, something that I need to stress here is that all of these fights were just building up to one of the most transformative confrontations of Bruce Lee's life. Bruce Lee's secret fight that pretty much no one ever talks about. Now, what happened in the secret fight, and how did it solidify Bruce's legacy? Yo, the details are coming up next. Your brother can't talk right. He can't walk right. You're dishonoring my family. Just wanted to kill you. Well, Bruce Lee's secret fight has always been a bit of a running joke for me, because whenever people tell me that Bruce Lee never actually fought anyone, and it's all hearsay, well, I have to laugh to myself because Bruce Lee fought someone. And there were actually a lot of witnesses when he did it. The reason why most people don't know about it is because, well, he wanted to keep it a secret, and that's why we call it Bruce Lee's secret fight. That's a novel concept, isn't it? Well, if you watch my channel for some time, I've alluded to this fight in quite a few videos over the last 2 years. I've actually been interested in this fight for well over a decade, and it was Alex Richter, the Kung Fu genius, who helped me connect all the missing pieces. So I'm planning an entire video on the situation around this fight, just like with some of the other fights that I've already discussed. So you have to forgive me for not going deeper into the details leading up to the fight. But to keep things simple, Lao Dai-Chan played a supporting role in a few foot and fist movies, and he was looking to land a leading role. Now, for those of you who don't know, foot and fist was a genre of kung fu movies that Bruce Lee did. Now, this guy, Lao Dai-Chan, like I said, he'd been in a few kung fu movies. He obviously knew enough kung fu to look believable on the screen. He was supposed to have been some kind of boxing champ, and also an expert in Cha Chuan, which I think is a Muslim flavor of Shaolin Kung Fu, or at least it has the same name as a style of Shaolin Kung Fu that was practiced by Chinese Muslims. Well, this guy Lao Dai-Chin publicly challenged Bruce Lee in the press, and as more newspapers and magazines started to pick up the story, well, some producers started to escalate things by promising anyone a leading role in their next movie if they could beat Bruce Lee and shut his mouth. If you listen to the phone call between Bruce and Daniel Lee sometime after The Big Boss and production of Fist of Fury, you can actually hear Bruce Lee mention being challenged by Lao Dai-Chin. Well, let me say this. I mean, I haven't as yet been able to control my anger, which I have violent answer. This comes by season, by age. Well, not only that, but I mean, if I have given me the time to just stop for a few minutes, I will be able to control it. But I say, fortunately, I mean, like, let's say if my chin is manly enough, instead of going to newspaper or walk up to me and slap. Well, like I said, this went on for some time. Bruce was trying to ignore the situation, but Lao Dai-Chin just kept chirping at him until he finally said, "All right, okay, let's do it." So there was a police detective named Dong Sung, and Dong Sung was getting T-money on the side, and he was also sort of not-so-quiet patron of Yip Man. And if you guys understand the meaning of taking T-money, then you know that Dong Sung was living large. He had a big estate out in the New Territories, and he actually had a boxing ring where some of Yip Man's students were actually training to adapt their Wing Chun to fighting in the ring against boxers. So, do you guys see where this is going? Bruce Lee and Lao Chan were going to fight in the ring at Dong Sung's house. There were people there to see the fight. And how do we know? Well, because Alex Richter has actually spoken to at least one or two of them, and this fight actually made it into a Bruceploitation movie. That's why I said I wanted to know about this fight for over a decade. In the movie, Bruce Lee's close friend Unicorn Chan is there, which leads me to believe that he may have actually been there for the real fight. Well, this is where everything we've talked about reached its point The climax of Bruce Lee's training. Apparently, Loud AI Chin came prepared to face Bruce Lee. So Loud AI Chin basically knew to watch out for Bruce's kicks. Keep your eyes on his legs. Don't let him use them against you. But unfortunately, he put too much of his awareness on what Bruce could do with his feet. And when the fight started, well, Loud AI Chin kept looking down at Bruce's feet. And Bruce cracked him. One story goes that after Bruce Lee knocked out Loud Dai Chin, he turned to the observers and said, "You knew to watch out for my feet. Well, now you know to watch out for my hands, too." Well, anyway, after Bruce finished clowning this guy, he actually asked all of the spectators to keep the fight a secret. Bruce also paid for Loud Dai Chin to go either to Korea or Japan to recuperate from his injuries. Bruce didn't want anyone to know what happened because he didn't want Loud Dai Chin's career to be affected by the outcome. Remember, Bruce struggled to make in America, and he had to come to Hong Kong to get a real shot at stardom, even though he fought this guy after Loud Dai Chin called him out publicly. He didn't want him to have to experience the same struggles and hardships that he faced when he was in America trying to make it. Well, over the course of looking at these 5 real fights Bruce Lee faced, we've seen more than just his skill and tenacity. We've actually witnessed the evolution of Bruce's philosophy and teachings that have greatly impacted the way we look at martial arts today. Each fight, from the boxing rings of a high school in Hong Kong to a secret encounter away from public eyes in the new territories, it wasn't just a display of Bruce's physical ability, but it was also a step towards developing Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do. Bruce Lee's journey was one of constant learning and adaptation, reflecting his belief that the best fighter is not a perfect fighter, but the one who adapts in the moment, a lesson that he meant to pass on to everyone in the game of death. Bruce Lee's real fights offer us a glimpse into the making of a legend, beyond the myths some people like to tell in a version of him on the silver screen. They teach us about the real challenges he faced, the new changes and innovations he brought to the way martial arts are trained and taught, and also his deep-seated respect for his opponents, even when he was victorious. Did you guys know that after his challenge fights, he asked people not to speak about what happened? It's one reason so few people know about Bruce Lee's actual fights. No one really talked about them, and Bruce Lee didn't brag about him. But anyway, look, if you enjoyed this deep dive and you want to explore more untold stories from the world of martial arts, hey, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for Golden Bell training. But hey, do you guys have any thoughts or insights on these fights? Drop a comment below, and I'd love to hear your views, and keep the discussion going in the comment section. Also, if you want to hear more Bruce Lee fight stories, you should check out this video on what really happened when Bruce Lee fought Joe Louis. Or if you want something different, you can check out this video about the 3 times Steven Seagal ran from a challenge. Well, anyway, look, I hope you guys keep training. Remember to breathe and come back and holler at me on the next video.